Assalamu alaikum, everybody. We have a great panel today, and the topic itself says a lot. Future of works. It comes with a lot of questions. Is the technology or the automation going to take over the humans? Is this artificial intelligence is so strong that the jobs will go away? Are we talking about that this all changing modes of the way working style has completely changed and the complete outsource models have been introduced? Do we have any loyalty left either with the organizations or with the individuals? Are we talking about these whole new terms of IoT, overall talking about augmented reality, 5Gs, blockchains? Are they going to all take over our day-to-day workings and impact our day-to-day lives in a totally different way? Are our offices going to be the same offices with the rooms, or are we talking about that all the place in the world is our office, and how our personal and office lives are going to be mixed together? All this is touched upon. All this is covered upon in the future of works. And we have our panelists over here who will be talking about that how all these different angles is going to be impacted in the respective technologies and the areas of work that we have worked in. The discussion overall moderation will be that each panelist will talk about his view or her view about the future of works for 3 to 4 minutes, and then we will have one question each from the overall panelists, and then we will open the floor to all the crowd available there as well. So, sabse pehle, Khalid Mansoor sahab, what do you think about future of works?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Saquib. Right, I hope I'm naming you correctly. Well, as you said, that it is a very elaborate subject, but very interesting one also, because everybody seems to be envisioning what would happen. But from my perspective, we have to view it from the psychographics of Centennial, and these are the kids who have born after 1996. And these are the kids who have been grown with the technology in their hand. If you look at a small toddler, all you see that most of the time he has, you see, either a mobile telephone in his hand or he's working with other tools and technologies in his hand. And also what they're saying that the way they have grown up, these tools and these technologies are changing every passing day. So that really changes the behavior and the attitude of these people. And the future of work is going to be the psychographics of Centennial and the impact of technology which is supporting their habits. So all said and done, I think in a couple of minutes, if I have to really articulate my thinking, it is going to change the organization, or organization will have to really gear up for these upcoming changes. Because these kids, when they will go to the organization as per their desire, they would like to have change, they will have less patience, their expectation is going to be great. As they expect that every week the application changes, every week the mobile telephone changes. So the same behavior or same expectation they will be looking forward in joining the organization. And also with the invent of the technology, the competitive edge of the organizations are going to be dependent that how the intellect is going to be retained in the organization. Because technology will be available to the organizations, and in order to really perform better than the other, all they have to do is to really grab the highly intellect people, but then they have to change their compensation strategy, their performance evaluation strategy, the way they are going to be ensuring that they will retain, because their inherent attitude is going to be plug in and plug out. They don't want to stay in one single organization as long as it does not fulfill their dream, their behavior or their sense of purpose. So organizations will have to really take care of all those situations. Otherwise, what would happen, there is going to be a very, very high attrition, or that is going to be impacting their profitability. So I think from that perspective, we need to prepare, and if we are able to really grab all those, future changes, then that is going to be really adopting the type of organization or the people in the organization who will be joining. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Khalid sir. And Over to you, Shoaib Sahab. Khalid Sahab talked about overall that how is the impact in the organizations and how the employees need to be retained to that angle and how this new changes can be adopted in those organizations and individuals as well. How do you see future of works in the investment point of view that you are related to?
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. To take it on further to what Khalid Sahab has already mentioned, from my perspective, the use of artificial intelligence, the use of technology, it can be considered an opportunity or it could be considered a threat. And certainly there's a lot of fear that there are some studies which say that in the next 15 years, 40% of the jobs will be displaced. Having said that, there are also reports, for example, World Economic Forum has done a report or survey and they have done a study. Based on that, equal number of new opportunities in the AI area will also be created by this displacement. So yes, I think it is a positive. And talking specifically from the perspective of financial services, I look back in time 3 decades ago when I was at university studying my master's, doing my master's in business administration. And I used to look at some of my friends who were doing articleship at audit firms. Now, certainly at that point in time, the use of computers was not that common. Calculators were there, but what we can see is that while the computers came and they were used, instead of using the big data registers being used by the accountant earlier, the jobs were not displaced. Rather, the economies of scale, the efficiency actually developed their business. The computing power increased, and as such, they were able to benefit. So as long as the artificial intelligence and technology is supporting the growth, I am pretty sure that it will create more opportunities than the threats. Talking about the asset management industry in particular, what I have seen is that, yes, there are 2 basic front ends of the industry. One is to get out to the people and to generate AUMs, assets under management, to raise money for investment. And the second aspect is basically to invest that money. In both these areas, artificial intelligence and cognitive learning will play an important role in going forward. And I must say that in Pakistan, we are lagging far behind at the moment. However, we have started on that process. And in terms of reaching out to our customers, for example, we have equipped our sales team with a mobile app where they can go out. Now they don't need to make a record of how many customers they made. Everything is logged. Everything is logged. So when they go out, meet different clients, they kind of provide some investment advice to them. So all records is automated. And that is something we need to do. Excuse me. In terms of marketing, again, the use of chatbots is increasing. At the same time, more emphasis on social media, which is increasing the efficiency of the marketing effort and is able to kind of get us to the right client who is actually with the right profile for investment. On the investment side, again, cognitive algorithms are being used to make sound investment decisions, because you see all these process of investments is a very unique blend of cognitive thinking, fear and greed, which is sentiments, and also analysis. And all these are uniquely combined in asset management industry. So I think artificial intelligence is certainly going to help. One should not be afraid of it, and inshallah, it will lead to more creation of jobs.
Thank you very much, Shoaib sir. Sajjad sir, Shoaib sir talked about that we have more opportunities than threats. And even with the social media becoming the hub place of business and chatbots taking over our call centers, how do you feel the impact of this is happening in the Pakistan overall, the impact of the future of work's overall direction that we are talking about?
Hello. Yeah. I think in the future, the workspace will be impacted on three major variables. Number one, the skill sets which are required would change. A lot of repetitive work that we do today will be taken over by AI. So jobs like call center operators and things like that, they will vanish. AI can very easily take care of that, and there is technology is available even today. SAP, Saquib's SAP has certain technologies which take care of that, the chatbots and so on and so forth. So repetitive work will be taken over. So new skill sets, we need to train our people in newer skill sets, high value work, and that is something the government has to start looking at today. No longer can we provide low wage, low end, low skill jobs, because those would be gone. The other aspect that I see is the workplace will become boundaryless. With 3G coming in and now 5G coming in, you will invariably see that people, our new kids, the millennials, the way they collaborate, the way they work, the way they communicate, the way they do their meetings and so on and so forth, those will significantly change in the short range. And we are already seeing this. No longer would we be confined to be in a certain, the team does not have to be physically present at one place. Because of immersive technologies and so on and so forth, we see collaboration taking a very new form. And if you see our next generation, most of the millennials, the way they communicate and collaborate, almost everybody that you see over here has a smartphone, and almost everybody, we are multitasking as we speak. We are talking, we are answering to our emails, we are doing our WhatsApps and so on and so forth. So a lot of that will change the way we collaborate and the way we work. So our office spaces will no longer be confined by physical boundaries. People will no longer be coming to a physical location to work. The third thing that I see is organizations and people will become more and more specific to a certain niche. And they probably will not be working for one organization at a time. So the concept of loyalty will also change. You will have people with certain skills in programming. They'll be working for 5 different companies at the same time. They'll be collaborating with 5 different teams, as we have in Google Circles. Everybody will be part of, if somebody is an AI developer, he'll be working for A, B, C, D, and E companies. So the concept of loyalty will change. When all of these things are coming in, then organizations like ourselves and others will have to define the compensation systems. The compensation systems will also change. The switchover will no longer, because there are the contracts are very different, so switching over from one company to another would also become very, very competitive. So as we go in, we have to think of our workspace as part of a blockchain as opposed to a physical location. And that is a mindset that we have to start adapting to as senior leaders or dying senior leaders of an era which is ending. The new work environment will be part of a chain, and not the entire organism as it exists today.
So Yasub, you talked about very important points on over there, and Fatima, as we are moving towards you, Sajjad sir mentioned that skill sets will change, no loyalty, there will be boundaryless offices overall, and the people will be working for different companies all at the same time. Everything that we do today is going to change. How do you see that?
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Saquib, and thank you, Amelia, for pointing out that I'm the first woman today. Ladies and gentlemen, future of work is more women and coming into the workforce. So I think we need to start over there. I think it's about recognizing the demographics that are there within each workplace, whether it was Pakistan or on a global field. But before that, I think we need to also accept the fact that intelligence is really what the late Stephen Hawking said, was intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. And I would take that further and say it is not only the ability to adapt to change, but it is also the ability to learn, unlearn, and then relearn. However, in a digitized world, the most important thing is not to forget how to be human. So the main challenge for our organizations in this digitized and very fast-paced technological advancements that are taking place is how do we construct and redefine organizations and skills and the learning ability and agility to ensure that the human connection is not lost. And when we talk about human connection, we talk about not only the creativity and the critical thinking aspect, but we also talk about empathy and equity and compassion for the other human being, and other living things that are around us, the environment, which has come under a lot of discussion and hopefully action as well. So you take it right to the millennials, to the centennials, which are entering the workforce right now. What kind of future are we creating, or what kind of future are they creating for themselves? And what are the challenges and the pressures that the organizations have at this point in time? You start with recognizing what the different demographics want. Each generation has a certain level, a certain sense of priorities, certain values, certain abilities, which are very different across the board. That's also diversity. This new generation wants a certain a purpose with which they can create a bit of meaningful, but they can also create value which is sustainable. How do you dovetail that into the business strategies and align them to create a value that will be sustainable, that will create a new future? That, ladies and gentlemen, I feel is the real challenge. Then we scale it back to what you mentioned about the gig economy as well, and the challenges that we have about individuals not being loyal to the organization. Yes, that is a thing of the past. Lifelong employment no longer exists in the world that we live in today. But what does exist is for organizations to recognize that what are the facets, compartmentalize. Where do you need permanent roles? Where do you need contractual roles? Where do you need short-term engagements? And what kind of skill set? Just a mention where by my fellow panelists as well, certain aspects are transactional in nature. उनको आप outsource या AI या through RPAs आप उनको transfer कर दें, align कर दें. Then you bring in the creativity and critical sense. You need these stints. What kind of skill do you want? What kind of learning do you want? So there's a lot of work for organizations to redefine how they are formulating the role and responsibility. How is it dovetailing to the future and anticipating what we will need in 5 years down the road? But also listening to the different generations that exist. What are they looking for? Is it meaningful? Is it an experience? Is it a delightful customer experience or an employee experience? What is the value proposition that we're defining at this point in time? And how are we reconstructing the organization that exists right now, but it will remain relevant as we go along in the future? So these are some of the elements that we need to keep in mind as we move forward towards a more transformative model. At the heart of every organization, ladies and gentlemen, is the human. And that is what we need not to forget and remind ourselves that when we develop business strategies, it is that human value which will really, truly impact sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fatima, and very, very valid points. And as we move to Rizwan, Masood Sahab, and I love the designation, Chief People's Officer. It's something that connects. Rizwan Sahab, Fatima talked about the two interesting points. One is in this world today, we have to learn and unlearn and learn again. That we have to do on a very faster pace. And the second thing she talked about was we need to have the humanity remain the main core within this digital network that we are talking about today, that we all are part of. How you see from your angle as a Chief People's Officer that you can sustain, and how you see future work impacting your organizations?
Thank you, Syed. Thank you for giving this opportunity to speak. I think 3 CEOs and a consultant, and then the guy, the fourth and fifth, is the guy who is really challenged in the organization to do the job, right? So I think, in all this disruptive, with the disruptive technologies, the environment we're facing, the millennials, I think role of HR, and that's why people. I think it's from that journey from human resource personnel management to really looking after people, and they are the key for the organization, and let's hence focus on that. Right? I think let me give a little context on Engro as a big organization, how we are handling the phenomena here. Right? So I think in last 18 months, the management team has been really focused to see where the future is because of all this technology, disruption, change, and the environment. So our focus is to, then I think the consensus was to really relook at our purpose, because now the younger generation and people go for the purpose. So what is our purpose of existence in the organization? And as an organization, what we believe in. So I think in last 18 months, we have done a lot of work on that. Then comes the how we really pivot people towards the purpose and the objective we have. I think performance management came into the, I think, into the question. So we are a very execution-oriented organization where business objectives needs to get delivered. So when you are talking about the change management, how you change that behavior, where people just are focused delivering business objectives and not looking at the behaviors. So now we have decided as an organization that we will go with 50% evaluation for people on the management competency behaviors. Because once you want to see and bring that change, you need to evaluate people and put them in that box that they need to think that what is really required for future. Then I think technology is a big play for us. We are heavily investing on technology to really counter all these things in the organization. And I think to your question, that I think last part of your question, I think.
Yeah, it was more about that how we can remain human within this digital environment that we are talking about.
I think delivery of objectives and looking at how you deliver that is important. Yeah. You look at the people aspect first, that how somebody is approaching that thing is very important. So I think that's how we're trying to address this.
Thank you very much, Rizwan Sahab. Rizwan Sahab talked about performance management, objectivity within the organizations. Clearly, behavior of humans in a certain role that they are put in will be the key parameter of the performance management. And that is how our evaluation process is changing. Over to going to Faisal Kamiran Sahab. Faisal Sahab, coming from the education industry, how do you see that future of works is getting impacted, or the education overall is a main enabler for this future of works? How do you see that?
Thank you so much, Saquib sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. So thank you so much, Saquib sir. So I think I'm one of the few individuals who have background in academic research, academic teaching, and also industry. So on the basis of my experience in all these three verticals, first of all, I would like to agree with my co-panelists. Like, yes, the future is clear. Like, their future is the adoption of technologies, the innovative technologies. Those second opinion. And this adoption would not only be just the technologies or the change of direction of work, it would also be change of the whole environment where people would work. Like remote working, like the change in office dimensions. So these are the clear indications. But going one step ahead of that one, so when we say this adoption, so I would like to put it in a local perspective of Pakistan. So for Pakistan, so it should be the right adoption of technology, innovative technologies. When I say right adoption, it means that we have to bring our academia, industry, and government, all these stakeholders in on one board. So they can work together, they can deliver, they can perform to produce the right product, because we have a huge opportunity with us. Right now, we have a big chunk of our youth population. Just like a random number, I think so, according to the recent estimate, so around 30% of our population is between the age of 50 to 35. So if I just translate this 30% into numbers, that is around 60 million people. So if we train them properly with the right technologies, when I say right technology, right training, it means we are going to give them the skills what are being demanded by the industry locally and internationally. We don't have any boundaries right now. So if I just combine them, like for example, 5 people are working to build one AI product or any other innovative product, it means that we have at least kind of 1 million export units in the time of maybe like 5 years, if we do our directions, if we do execute the things in the right way. Here academia have to contribute. They have to give the right education, right skill set, with the proper curriculum, with the proper hands-on, so which are being demanded by the industry. Then the industry should also open their arms. They should come close to the academia instead of closing them into separate apartments and compartments. And a government should come and they should also try to support both. For example, like they should treat every single freelancer as an exporter. They should try to encourage them. There should be, for example, there could be competition. Like for example, if any person in the age of 20, they're exporting the software at a certain threshold, so they should encourage them, they should award them. So if we combine all these 3 things and we bring academia at par, then definitely I'm seeing a huge potential for Pakistan, and that would be the actual point where we can get benefit from our youth to cope up with this future of work challenges.
Thank you very much, Faisal sir. Now going into the first question sessions, Khalid sir, this theory that automation is going to come and take over the humanity or humans is not something that has just come up new. This theory is there for the last 45 years, 40 plus years. What has happened suddenly in the last 5 or 7 years that everybody is talking about, that this automation is going to impact the human resource to that extent? What has changed suddenly that everybody has an impact on their lives? How do you see that?
Good question. Well, if I look back, 40 years in my career, when I joined, the office environment used to be that you write a letter to interact with the organizations. You have a couple of clerks with whom, you type your memo or performance assessment report and then wait for weeks until that got typed. And then, we had the computers available. And then I remembered that, when I got transferred to Exxon in my early career, there came fax machine. And people said, wow, this is the total transformation or end of technology. Because rather than writing the telexes or writing letters, you can draw a sketch and send it to OEM and he would be able to diagnose your problem. But that was thought to be the ultimate, or rather, end of technological improvement. But from there onward, if you see that how transformation is taking place, in my experience, it had been, rather systematic. That 5 years, one kind of transformation, then, you have the mobile telephony, and then you have Skype, then you have Zooms, etc., etc. But if we look right now, in the last 2-3 years, the transformation is phenomenal. It is a paradigm shift. I gave a couple of examples. You talked about the technological improvement, etc. But, just dovetailing it or linking it with the organization structure, it was not impacting as much as it is doing right now. And I give 2 specific examples pertaining to HUBCO. I attended 2 years back, or rather it was 3 years back, the global conference of GE. And here come Jeff Immelt, and he came and talked to the people, 500 CEOs globally attending. And they said that one of their biggest revenue center is going to be digitization. And that was a kind of new word people heard. That they said that GE was a technology supplier, but now this is a paradigm shift. That other than technology, we will be doing the predicts, which is going to be analytics, and we will be providing services to the organization. We heard it with a lot of interest, and then we had a deep dive into it. We realized that what kind of implication it is going to be having in terms of plant operating performance. And I give you one example that HUBCO's first plant is almost 22 years old, and they offered something together with predicts or paradigm shift. And they said that we can renew your machines, and which will improve the performance by almost 4%. So that number sounded huge. But they said that with the implementation, what would happen, that they will take away the older rotors and put in the new one, and with an excellent, business model, whereby GE will invest on the capital, but if there is going to be actual improvement, which is going to be, demonstrated, then there is going to be a profit sharing. We did that, and I'm happy to report that now all those machines are virtually new. So 4% improvement in efficiency means a lot, but the other model which they are introducing, it is absolutely fantastic, and that is going to be impacting the organization structure. It is called asset performance management. What they are doing, that if, for instance, we look at some other plants, we have done the organization based on the performance of the machine and what we can do through the human resource or intervention. But this model, this is the first time they implemented anywhere in the world, that with different sensors on our 11 machines at Narowal plant, through the cloud platform, the real-time optimization is being monitored by a GE expert in Atlanta. And on real-time basis, they are telling us that, you see, what is the best efficiency point. Conventionally, you have a team of people who are doing the performance. So there is going to be a huge workforce which will collect the data and then, run it through different application, then do the analysis, and then they will say that that is how you can improve the performance. But now there is no need. And hence, what is happening, that the same implication is going to be happening on the OEMs as well. What we used to do, that we look at their manuals, and there was a specific requirement when a specific part is to be changed. Run it after 5,000 hours, 10,000 hours, so on and so forth. But with this digitization or, incorporation of the technology, we will do it on the real need basis. So that has, brought in the paradigm shift. But lastly, since time is short, with this kind of change, what is happening, that the organization structures are going to be changed. Now, what would happen, that with this technological implementation, the requirement of extremely specialist people, as the other gentleman had said, that he may not be a permanent employee. So at least in HUBCO, I am looking at organization structure, that with this kind of digitization, with this kind of paradigm shift, which are the people who will required on a permanent basis, and which are the people or skill set I just need to bring in on need basis. They will come, fix it, maybe for one day, maybe for 1 week, maybe for 1 month. And that is where the organization structures are going to be the leaner, the thinner, and so on and so forth. And that is the reason, this buzzword, gig technology, and that is becoming more and more famous. So with that kind of stuff and the technological improvement, the competitiveness is also increasing. And as the other gentlemen have said, that, that will require organization to relook at their organization model, how they are going to be really retaining the employees, how they are going to be motivating them, and so on and so forth, how they are going to keep them current. So that would mean they will need to learn the newer and newer skills, they need to be more innovative, and so on and so forth. Finally, I'm saying that this change is not going to be happening very long. Tabdeeli aa nahi rahi, tabdeeli aa chuki hai.
I think this is the best said in the right context. Ye wali tabdeeli waqai aa chuki hai. I think the way you explained the HUBCO example, I think this is a true example, and that's something that we need to understand, that how this is happening in Pakistan and how it is happening within our organizations. Moving to you, Shoaib Saab, you belong to the financial sector, as I said. And we know these days we are talking about all the wars are economic wars. Everything that is linked is to our economy. Do you really think that this future of works can completely be digitized and automized and human factor can be completely taken out of it? Is this something that we can entering such kind of a world, or we will still always have that human factor in this economic war that we are talking about?
Yeah, so as we just talked about, the panel discussed that most of the repetitive works will be outsourced, it will be automated, it will be done through artificial intelligence. But what does really mean actually? What it really means is that the importance of innovation, the importance of creativity will further improve. Let's take the example of HR. All the mundane jobs, repetitive jobs, for example, recruitment, performance measurement, AI could be used to do those jobs. But that would mean that the HR department will have more time actually to engage with the people, to motivate them, to come up with innovative ideas. Similarly is the case with all aspects of business. And as Fatima also mentioned, that this human factor, we have to make sure that human factor is not lost, because we will have to continue to motivate the people. Although they will not have the long-term ties with the organizations, they will be more passionate about what they want to do rather than what process they are doing or what organization they are working for. But continuous engagement will be very, very important. So I would say the human element will actually become more important, and the factors of empathy, innovation, creativity, emotional intelligence, they will be, I think, more relevant and more important for this.
Thank you very much, Shoaib. So I think emotional intelligence and empathy are the key things that we need to develop in this generation that is coming on. Sajjad, in your first round, you mentioned about boundary-less offices, you talked about skill sets. It brings to a very important question that if we have boundary-less offices and the skill sets are to be required, what is the impact of then international workforce for us, and how our people can work on that international workforce? Because if there are no boundaries, this means the room to play for all the international world within this span is there. So either we can lose jobs to the people, or our people can go and take other jobs. How this boundaryless environment is going to impact us?
HUBCO is a classic example that he gave, right? So with boundaries, with internet, with connectivity, you will find the most valuable skill, and that's where the job will go. Let's be straight and honest about it. That's the way it's going to be. And if we are going to be in the workforce, we have to develop niches. We need to be competent and develop niches where we are good at and be connected to the world. The world is flat at the end of the day. I look at it more as an opportunity than as a threat. For instance, we are sitting over here in Pakistan from our office. We are serving about 40 customers in Middle East, where all of their IT work, everything is being managed over there, and it's not like outsourcing in a typical model. We are engaged with our customers in their strategy. We are engaged with them in their manufacturing. We are engaged with them in their operations and so on and so forth. So it is a lot more linkage. So as I would say, now when they think of their organization or when you think of our organization, we are actually a part of them. So going forward, I see a lot more of those linkages coming in. So we have to stop thinking of our organizations as a singular model. We are part of a chain. As I mentioned earlier, that we would be a cog in a big chain. We have to think blockchain. The organizations, earlier we all used to work on interdepartmental coordinations. So we were talking about ERPs, like, finance talks to supply chain, and supply chain talks to HR, and HR talks to sales, and sales talks to store, and store talks to this and that. So we were all building technologies around it. Now those collaborations and coordinations got finished in the 90s and maybe early part of the century. Now we have to think beyond our organization. Now we are part of a much larger organism. And now we have to collaborate with each other, and not just our customers, with our banks, our vendors, and so on and so forth. So the future of work that I see is organizations which are diverse, organizations which are even more connected, organization where I would not say the word outsource means you just give and forget, where the organizations are so intimately interconnected, but they are boundaryless. Through this, we'll be able to decrease the costs of our infrastructure, get better quality workforce. And HUBCO example, again, I'm really happy to see this, sir, because it is already happening, and it will continue to happen. We will see more and more and more of this. So we need to shape up, or we'll be left out. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, Sajjad sir. According to you, boundaryless environment is an opportunity for this 220 million population. And that's pretty much true. What we have is human resource. And if we have these boundaryless environments, the whole world opens for us for this human resource to get that one. Fatima, over to you. You, in your first session, you talked about a gig economy. You talked about a human resource working for a certain period of time. In our world today, we used to invest in people to make sure that we develop them as a resource, as something that we will retain with our organization. But moving into this future of works, where the people will work for 6 months for one organization, 6 months for the other organization, how we will grow them, how they will become loyal to the organization, how this growth pattern that HR department invests on a human, why they should invest it, because they are there for a very small period of time.
Okay, that's a great challenge for as we navigate and find ourselves as organizations, as individuals as well. It's part of the continuous learning process that I was, an agile learning that I was alluding to earlier as well. Again, two aspects there. One is the employee or the new generation which is coming in, and even the older generation mindfully deciding that they don't want to be associated with one particular organization for an extended period of time. So what there is a culture shift, not a culture shift only, but a mindset change in saying, I will invest in my own development in terms of these individual objectives. So it's become very individual specific. What is my experience? What is the value that I bring to myself as an individual? And what kind of experience will I look to complement that learning that I have? And then, you see, so you have to see the supply and demand has shifted, basically, how we're viewing it. On the flip side, on the organization, what we have been talking about is you're redefining the roles and responsibilities. Organizations are being much more cognizant of not only cost efficiencies, but becoming more and more effective in terms of where are they going to invest in terms of the learning aspect. So you're seeing a shift in the mindset of both the organization and the individual. Now, organizations also are cognizant of the fact that there will be a certain percentage of their workforce which will not continue with them. And what they will be doing is, and that is something that we are experiencing at Abacus, one of the 11 businesses that we have is the human capital, where we are facilitating organizations thinking of developing a platform where we're saying, these are the skill set that this organization A is looking for. And then you send out a request and you say, who is interested in gaining that experience? So the way you're modeling the entire aspect is changing. The way you're recruiting is changing fundamentally. And that ties back into one of the trends that is emerging on a global level, and I'm sure it is something which is fast taking place in Pakistan as well, is people will connect with organizations that they care about. That sense of purpose, जो मैंने पहले भी जिक्र किया था. So sense of purpose, they want to work with organizations which will complement their learning. So yes, while there is a component where organizations will continue to say, these are the skill set and jobs and roles that we will invest in for future learning, but at the same time, what we're also providing are platforms for experience. And self-learning is what is going to drive the market. We have many platforms which are online, many learning platforms which are emerging, even the apps that you have. I think there's Udemy and Coursera and many others, where people are just logging in and then continuously learning with very diverse skill set, because the future belongs to those who are developing their skills. And then they have a menu. So you see the shift happening, and if organizations also transform the way they work, that's what's happening at Abacus. We have a great, out of the 3,000 people that we have across 3 continents, only 450 are permanent. And the rest of them are not only project-based, but also short-term engagements where we're picking up from different localities, different nationalities. It's a great challenge that we have within our organization, but we're cognizant that if we don't change in the way we think and provide these learning opportunities, we will no longer be relevant.
Good. So you wanted to say?
Just want to add on something that, look, you see, the fact is that it's going to be a gig economy at play. As I said, that with the advent of technological incorporation, the permanent organization structures are going to be very lean and mean, right? So that would mean plug in and plug out. People will come, fix your problem and go away. But how it is going to ensure the business continuity, that's the issue, right? So 2 things, it has to be controlled through management process, which is proper documentation and coordination. When the job finishes, what kind of handing over and taking over is done. And you don't have to retain knowledge in your own mind the way, the old concept used to be, that you have one guy and until he's not there, you won't be able to start the machine. There are system and procedures which are going to be in there. And lastly, in our board, what really happens that there's a process which is called business continuity process. It is reviewed on a regular basis, and if any change is being made, then the board asks the question that what if? That if this thing happens, how you will ensure that business continues to operate.
Very, very fair point. Rizwan, Masood sahab, we all talked about the change management that we talk about. In all the organizations, we need accountability, we need proven track record. We always talk about what will happen if the service fails. When you have so many dynamics of human resource moving from one place to another, how we can manage this proven track record and accountability of an organization in the context of the future of works? How we can make sure that the end-to-end result an organization achieves and gives the final product in terms of service or product to the customer, considering that all the dynamics are changing on the backside?
I think it's not that easy. I think every organization is going through this transformation where they're looking and rethinking about their models. But see, the principles will stay. The principles will not change. Reliability, all these things need to be there, right, to run an organization. But how you measure, how you look at those things might be different. So I think there are different examples which we could look at. Today, if we go and want to see, I think the other realization we need to have is the institutions are diminishing. The confidence level and reliability and all these things are changing now, right? So how you go and eat at a restaurant today, right? So you will not go by the name. You'll go and look at the reviews, who has reviewed it, how many reviews are there, and what is the rating, and then you'll pick your bet, right? So similarly, now you probably will take a 300-mile ride with a stranger based on some other information, right? So similarly in the organizations, I think we need to open up ourselves as well. So I think the confidence level and I think the reviews and the technology will help to make those decisions better for people and employees as well.
A very fair point on that point. We all need to pass through this change management process. Faisal Saab, over to you for the last question of the session. With all these discussion about automation and fast-moving world that is changing, what is the role of the academia and education in the future of works? How you see that how they will change over the period of next 3 to 5 years to accommodate the future of works change that is happening all across the world and in Pakistan as well?
Yeah, I think so. Role of education. Primarily, I think we would have to change from the very beginning. For example, this coding stuff we would have to introduce to our kids at quite early stage. We cannot hold up to their bachelor's level or their at least O levels or A levels. We would have to teach them that this is an important part of their education from the very beginning. So if we will try to inculcate them this kind of software development sense from the beginning, it's not only software development, it's kind of like through interacting with the software. If you are, for example, in every field, so whatever you want to build, maybe there is some solution available, with the advent of these apps and with the advent of these modern solutions. So this is very important that we would have to take care of this thing from the very beginning. Second thing, about the higher level, I think we need to teach our graduates that what are the quality measures. For example, so we have a great opportunity that we have a whole world in front of us to sell our products. But it means we also have to meet their standards. It's not something local that you are selling in a small city. So you would have to meet the standards what all the great companies, maybe from India, maybe from Eastern Europe, what they are providing. So if you are unable to do that, so then you would be in disadvantage. And final thing, the first two parts are actually related to the delivery of things. So whatever responsibility or the project or assignment you take, you need to deliver as per your agreement. The last part is ethical concern, that whatever you are doing, it should not just for the sake of requirement and delivery of the requirement. you always need to be very, very careful about the ethical aspects. For example, so I do have a working experience of artificial intelligence with like several governments and organizations. So I think it's a temptation of our youth and our engineers that there are so many kind of open source libraries. They just want to use those libraries, which is a very good thing. I think they should do that. But they want to use blindly. They just want to feed data, they want to learn models, and they want to deploy it somewhere. So in these cases, if something unethical or legal violation would happen, it could lead to disaster. So for POCs, for small experiments, this is okay. They can go for that one. But if they are going to build some enterprise projects, they need to understand what exactly they are building, how this mathematical AI function works, how it learns patterns. So what kind of data they are using. So is there something unethical, illegal, but is being fed to the model or being learned by the model? So they need to validate it. It should be very explainable, clearly explainable to the decision makers and to the actual users of these AI models. Because like with these like prevailing privacy and these new legal concerns is extremely important. You cannot skip these things.
Thank you very much. Fatima, you had a point?
A very quick point to add to what Faisal is saying from an education. Education, you take it back to the school level and then onwards to university level. And I just want to give the example of LUMS, which I'm privileged to be part of the Board of Trustees. And over the last year or so, we have been working very diligently and intensively on how do we transform the institution's foundation terms of framework of excellence that is being provided to the future generation. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we are a population of more than 200 million people, and 60% are under the age of 30. And it is our responsibility, that is our legacy, that what kind of platforms are we providing. So from an education perspective, that is the supply into what we're talking about right now. All of us sitting over here are employers, potential employers and employers of the workforce that is coming in. What are we demanding? And are these universities actually aligning to the demand that we have at this point in time? I feel there is a huge gap then. So LUMS has redesigned it to ensure not only looking at global practices, but also configured it in such a way that the medium of instruction, the way the professors are also imparting knowledge, the access that you have to frameworks, cognizant of the fact that the student body that is sitting in front of us, average age would be 18, 19, if you look at bachelor's and then onwards to the master's program across the 5 schools, are digital natives. So the way you're teaching them has to change, the messaging has to change. They'll come up and say, oh, but we explored this and researched it on Google, so what value are you adding? And that is something that our universities have to consciously, and it's already happening on a global level. So just keeping that in mind as well, that will also influence how the future of work will turn out.
Thank you very much, Fatima and all the panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of works is here. The change is coming. And we have to adapt to this change. This change is boundaryless. This change is in our homes. This change is in our office environments. In every second day, we need to understand how these millennials and these centennials are working. Their way of thinking is totally different. Just quoting a very small example, 2 weeks back, I was talking to my A-level son who just joined the A-levels, and there was a mathematical calculation that was supposed to be done, which I did in my mind, and he was just trying to do it in the calculator, and I did it faster. So very proudly, I said to him, look, what kind of generation are you? I can do it in my head and you can use a calculator. And he came back to me and said, I don't know what is the issue with your generation. You feel so proud about proving that you can do these things on your head, rather not use the tools, and I can use my mind for something better because I have the tool to use this one. These are the centennials and these are the millennials, that how they are dealing with us today. And they are going to be the decision makers in the next 15 years. They are going to be running our organization. their way of working, their thought process, their approach towards different things will be totally different, and we are the ones who needs to adapt. We are the ones who need to make sure that how we accept this change within our homes, within our education system, within our offices, within our office environment, and get ready for that. It's very important that we accept this change, that this future of works, and as all the examples given by the panelists, all this is happening today. It's an opportunity for the people of Pakistan. Great opportunity. We have amazing talent over here, and using this future of works with boundaryless overall workforce that we are talking about, we can, sitting over here, we can do the works. We are already doing it, but we can make it more methodological. We can start controlling it. We can make it an asset. And that's how we can change the destiny, and that's how we all can be part of something where we have given back to this country. And that's how change ourselves. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much, panelists, for this discussion. And I think it's a great time to take over from